Hey, welcome to Backyard Bows. I'm Brandon, and this week's budget bow is from Mission by Matthews. And I went with the Switch, mainly because it's a little bit more versatile. It's probably actually one of the most versatile platforms on the market. I think the only other one that kind of competes along with it is the Legit by Bear. And we'll talk about the wide ranges of draw lengths and draw weights that it gets here in a second. So again, budget bows. Well, let's take a step back. First, when I originally was starting out, going into a bow shop, you'd see the Matthews, and then usually they have like a Mission section right next to it. And I assumed that Mission was the kids' brand of Matthews, or the kids series of Matthews. And then as I got older, I realized that I would categorize them more as just the budget bows of Matthews. But Matthews does a pretty good job of separating Matthews bows from Mission bows. It kind of seems like two different companies. And then you start to realize that these bows fit all and a really large range of hunters. So again, two colors. I went with the Real Tree. You got a 31 axle to axle, a really nice long brace height of 7 1/8 inch. I like the riser, has a little bit of a reflex to it, which is a little bit different than the Matthews bow hunting bows that you see. Again, we dress them up like a budget bow. We have just a nice little cheap sight here that you can buy like a setup package. It's called the Bow Hunters package, and it comes with a drop rest. I actually put a Matthews stabilizer on here, and then it comes with a nice, little inexpensive sight. Plastic limbs, limb pockets, plastic cable guard that slides on the rod that we see. And then, the other thing that really stood out to me is these limbs are really thin and really long, and they kind of have a real long horizontal stretch to them, which is just a little bit different than some of the bows that we've reviewed lately. Let's jump to what they are calling the Fast Fit cams. Really cool. I kind of messed around with them a little bit. There is a module on these cams, and it's actually hooked onto the axle, and it kind of just rotates. So there's one screw, and you pop that one screw off, and you rotate that module till it lines up with the hole that fits you. And we'll throw a graph up on the screen, but the first row of holes is your inch differences, and then the second and third are your half-inch increments. So it goes from 18 inches all the way out to 30 inches, which is huge. And then the overall draw weight that this bow gets goes from 11 pounds to 70 pounds. And I'll touch a little bit more on that in a second. So not every draw length gets from 11 pounds to 70 pounds. And if you go on their website, they actually have like a little graph that you can move back and forth, set it to your draw length, and it will give you the draw weight that you can reach. So 30 inches for the draw length, which is the max. You can get from 34 pounds up to 70 pounds. That's almost 35 pounds with the turns out of these bolts. And then let's say you go on the lower end of the spectrum. For the 18-inch draw length, you can go from 10 pounds to 31 pounds. And then if you go right there in the middle, let's say 24.5 draw length, you can go from 24 pounds to 62 pounds. So again, if you set it to a certain draw length, you got to look on the chart, and it'll give you the draw weight that you can fluctuate from. Really cool system though. So again, one of the questions is they're claiming that you get a high performance at every draw length. But we all know that when you start to be able to adjust a bow so long, it gets harder and harder to manipulate that draw cycle. And you can tell usually by the shape of the mods and cams. We have almost what looks like, like a no cam, like a circular cam here. It's almost completely circular, and the mod is like a football shape. Again, they have to get creative and create the mods and cams that are gonna get you those really long draw lengths with a big fluctuation of draw weight, but it usually plays into the draw cycle pretty hard. So we'll shoot it and we'll kind of give you that assessment, but I have a feeling this is going to have a little bit different draw cycle than what we're usually, like to see. So let's go ahead, we'll do our single shot assessment, and then we'll go outside, we'll do a little freestyle shoot. So like I mentioned before, this is one of the, the bows that is the most versatile in the market right now. I think the other one is the Legit by Bear, and I think the Bear actually is a little bit more versatile with the draw length and draw weight, but and that one's coming up next in the next couple weeks. So we'll kind of get to see both and compare both. Yeah, I mentioned in the last review, if you're gonna buy a package, I usually stay away from them, but the package that Mission puts out for these bows, I kind of like it. It does have a drop rest included into it. The sight is a little bit cheaper, but you know, that's always something that you can invest in later if you want to. But it's a nice, you know, for a 31-inch axle to axle, it's kind of a nice compact bow. It's nice and light, so I think it's like 3.8 pounds. So this is like a perfect bow to climb in with. Blinds, you know, anything under 4 pounds is awesome. I think it only gets, so in the IBO rating, it's like 308. So this would be on the slower end of the bows that we've reviewed to date, especially once you throw in my 500 grain arrow there. I'm actually not even gonna guess. We'll just have to wait and see till later to where this thing gets. So let's go ahead and we'll sling a couple in here and then we'll go outside. So, man, like I just mentioned, it gets harder and harder to manipulate the draw weight, you know, which is kind of the, you know, the best thing about a compound bow. And, you know, one of the main jobs of the cams is to kind of manipulate that draw weight and then to be able to let you hold it in full draw. So when you have a more circular shaped cam, the back wall, there really is not much of a back wall. This thing wants to jump on you. It's kind of, you can feel it pulling on you the whole time that you're holding it. I like the balance of it. It does feel like you're pulling about 80 pounds. But yeah, it wants to kind of jump on you immediately. That's probably one of the more unpleasant bows to hold in full draw. You know, they have this little thin grip on here. It's similar to the ones that you'll see on the other Matthews. This one kind of feels more like a plastic than the rubber that you see on some of the Matthews bows. And the vibration's not horrible. I'm gonna have to fix that peep before we step outside, but yeah, I mean, you can feel it wanting to jump on you. The vibration's not bad. I think comparatively, it's probably a little bit more noticeable than some of the others, but not so bad that I would say it's negative. Let's do one more. Yeah, so the draw is not my favorite. Yeah, once you get it set up, I mean, this thing wants to just jump the whole time you're holding it. Besides that, it does balance nicely, and then I'm assuming it's a little hair loud. But let's go outside, we'll have some fun with it, and we'll shoot it a whole bunch before we give it that final grade. And then, like I said before, I think it's gonna be a little bit on the slower side, but we'll come back in, we'll throw it through that chronograph test, and we'll see. But this is one of the cheaper budget bows that we're gonna get. So you're looking at $420 to get you in the field. Incredible. So again, if you're gonna spend a little bit less money, you gotta sacrifice here and there, but I think for the price, and again, we'll shoot it a bunch today, but I think this is a good bang for your buck. So good investment. You know, not my favorite draw cycle, but again, when you can't have the best of everything when you're trying to get yourself in the field on a budget. The main goal is to purchase whatever bow that you can that fits in your life and your lifestyle, and then practice, and whatever it is that you're gonna use, you're gonna get good at it if you put the time and effort into it. But let's get outside, we'll have some fun. All right, so on to what we call the freestyle shoot. For those of you who are just now following along, we have a whole bunch of 3D targets here in the backyard. Right here, we're on a deck that's elevated up, that downward shot angle, kind of assimilating that tree stand. We've built a little box here that gets us up to clear over this rail. Turkey 20, bore at 25, buck at 30. Then we'll go across, shoot diagonally into the hill. We got a broadhead buck at 30, black bear at 40, and then elk up on top at 50. And we'll shoot everything. And you know, some guys will do a bow review, they'll go into a bow shop and they'll shoot like 3-4 shots and they'll give you this review. I like the initial shot assessment because I think you can learn a lot from it. But for us to give you a grade in the end, especially that performance side of the grade, we really like to shoot the bow a ton. So we'll shoot 150 shots, maybe 200 shots throughout an entire day or weekend before we sit down and give you that grade. But we'll do some here on camera and then we'll shut it off and we'll really get after it. So let's start with the turkey and we'll work our way all the way up to that elk. So full draw, I think because of the hold, because it wants to jump on you so much, there's no back wall, it doesn't steady very well. Or it's a little harder to steady the bow in full draw because you're having, you know, you're kind of fighting it when it's in full draw. You're kind of fighting it to keep it back. And the whole time that you're in full draw, you can actually feel it wanting to jump on you, which I think plays into that shot. So let's move up to the bore. The vibration is not horrible. I think I mentioned that inside. That's not that bad. I think the draw cycle is probably my least favorite of any of the bows that we've reviewed. Now I'm gonna say that, so when we grade these bows, we factor in the price, we factor in everything, because really the main goal is to get you in a tree stand or to get you in the field, no matter what your budget is. So again, you're gonna have to sacrifice here and there, but the main goal is to practice. So no matter what bow you end up going with, you know, and hopefully these reviews will help you kind of make some decisions along your way, but the goal is to get you in a bow shop, get as many bows in your hand as you can. One will eventually stand out to you, and if that fits your budget, go with it and then just practice. So let's put one on the buck. Okay, and again, me shooting this bow now to versus me shooting it late in the day after I put 200 arrows through it, I get better and better and better just within one day. It gets more comfortable to me. I make little adjustments here and there. So again, the keys to practice. But let's go over and we'll get some of those longer range shots in. All right, so we mentioned in the last review, but the shots that play the biggest into the performance grade for me are the shots from over here. Like, this is where I kind of pay the most attention. And I know it's hard when purchasing a bow to get into a bow shop that has a range that goes up to these depths, but I think this is where you're gonna see the shootability, the forgiveness the most, is once you get to those medium range shots, 40, 50 yards. So when the camera shut off, this is where we spend most of our time shooting for the remainder of the day, is from over here. So we'll go buck and then black bear and then get up the hill to the elk at 50. And I think the thing that I'm finding to be the biggest negative about this bow is when it's in full draw, it wants to move all over on you. And that's not even something I've really come across in any of the bows that we reviewed. And obviously I think that has to play into the versatility of the cam systems that make it so uncomfortable and hard to hold. So, shooting 20, 30, 40 yard shots, maybe 40 at the most, but 20, 30 yard shots, I think this is probably a great option if you want to go on the lower end of the budget. But I think as we move up the hill of that elk even, you'll see that, you know, it just gets harder and harder to keep it still. So let's go to the black bear. You know, and as we go through these budget bows, and I've said this several times, you have to keep in mind that it doesn't matter what you go with. I can't stress that enough. What matters is how much in the off season are you going to shoot the bow. Consistency is key, so shooting your bow every day, even if it's just a quiver full of arrows, consistency building up to that season. Then when you get into the season, it will be, you know, second nature. You know, it'll just come to you no matter what bow you use. So as much as this is uncomfortable to me at the moment and maybe inaccurate at the moment, if I was to practice with this thing all the way into the fall, you better believe I'd be heart shots all day with it. Just depends on how much time you want to put into it. So For the lower end, for $400, it's a great bow. You know, you kind of factor all that stuff in, it's a great bow for the price. But you know, comparatively to some of these really high-end bows we've done, that's kind of what my perspective is and where I'm giving you the feedback from. So keep that in mind. So let's go one more on that black bear, and then we'll move up the hill to the elk. So let's go ahead and go, take that back. Let me put one more on the black bear. I always got to kind of finish on a better note, you know. I'm a little OCD. And I'm not gonna lie, this is kind of this is the first shots with this on a 40-yard shot. That's kind of what so again, I'm gonna adjust and make one last shot, but this is uncomfortable to hold still for me. Better. Okay, let's go up the hill to that elk, and we'll see how we do at 50. All right, so now we're gonna go up the hill. This is the longest shot that we usually shoot here in the backyard. Occasionally, we'll step outside the fence and you can get up to 60. But I usually just kind of shoot right in here. Elk at the top with 50. We got some straw bags behind it, which for like safety issues, but for the most part, I think 50 is a great range for you to determine how that bow feels to you. I think it's probably the best range. So like I said before, we'll do a ton of shooting from here on that elk, and that'll kind of play the biggest factor into that grade at the end. But something I haven't talked a ton about is the thickness of this grip on here is like perfect to me. I love this. Again, the material's kind of plasticky, but the thickness and the shape of it, I think it's great. One of my favorite parts about it. So let's get up the hill. And the wind is picked up a little bit, so that doesn't help. But even before the wind, it's been the hardest bow to kind of dial in and to steady that sight, so that pin. And then I think it has a real snap to it, the sound, which I don't like that either. I don't like a loud bow. I feel like something's wrong, but it's not. I think it's just the noise that it makes, but it has a real like snap. So, you know, I think my favorite part about doing this, I had somebody comment, and the comment was, man, I got into a bow shop that had a ton of different bows. I got to shoot everything. I noticed this, this that I assumed about this bow manufacturer wasn't true. It actually was this. And that's kind of the reason we started doing this, was I felt growing up, all I ran into my whole life, no matter what hunting camp I was at, was just these fanboys that just tried to throw something down your throat. And not to mention, but it was usually Matthews or Hoyt, and it just how much it was the best of everything. And man, I cannot stress enough to you, the viewers, that your biomechanical makeup is so much different than mine, and so much different than your brothers and cousins and uncles who recommend certain bows for you. Get into a bow shop, get bows in your hands. One will stand out to you. And I stand by that. You shoot 10 different bows, one of them you will just remember, and that's gonna be the bow for you. So just take that into consideration when you're in your bow buying process. But let's go ahead, we'll shoot one more on that elk up the hill, and then we'll go inside, we'll do a little chronograph test, we'll shoot a whole bunch, and then we'll give it that grade. All right. Okay, final piece of the puzzle. Like we do, we'll take a step inside. We're gonna get the speed that each bow gets. Same setup, 29.5, 70 pounds through the chronograph. I think it got 308 with the IBO, so I really don't know. I can't even really make a valid guess on where this is gonna get. So, which usually I can, but let's go ahead, we'll put a couple through. $253. So, significantly lower than some of the other bows that we've seen, but still extremely fast, you know, and that's all a perspective, but I would say 250 feet per second for an arrow projectile, that is super fast. So, 257. Let's do one more. $258. So any bow that gets under the 270 gets the 8 out of 10. Again, it was kind of hard to guess where it was going to be with my 500 grain arrow, but 250, 255, somewhere right in there. Give us a second. We're going to throw all the numbers together for the final grade, and we'll be back in just a second. And something else that I forgot to mention about Mission before we get to the grading is that 100% of the profits from Mission, all the Mission bows that are sold goes to missionary groups. So the owner of Matthews, who also owns like McPherson Guitars, probably several other companies, he gives 100% away. Pretty cool. Okay, so we got the Mission by Matthews. We went with the switch. Like we said in the beginning, we went with the switch of the ones that they had because of the versatility of the platform here, which I always love to see. Anytime that they can create such a versatile platform, how that affects the draw cycle and the shot cycle. And I kind of, as testing these bows, I love to kind of get those in my hand and see how they feel. So we'll jump right into it. The speed test that you just saw inside, it maxed out at 258. Anywhere between 250 and 280, we give you an 8 out of 10. We reward for bows that can get those kind of really high speeds, anywhere between 280 and 290. We give you the full 10 out of 10. And if we can get a bow in here that gets over 290 with my draw weight, draw length let off, and my 500 grain arrow, we'll give you those 2 extra points and we'll give you that 12. So this got the 8 out of 10 for that. The quality, durability, I love the riser. It's a really nice, solid riser. Everything else on it is plastic, from the string stop to the grip to the limb pockets to the cable guard. You know, you got a ton of plastic on here. So we give it the nice solid 7 out of 10 that we've been giving these budget bows for just that general budget bow quality. Then you got the appeal. I gave it a little bit extra on the appeal because I actually really like this Realtree Edge camo. I love the riser. This is just a nice, compact, slick bow. For $420, I think you're getting the best craftsmanship that could go into a bow for that price. And I think Matthews is known for that, and they do a really good job with kind of that you know, attention to detail and making these things just appeal to the highest of levels. So we gave it an 8 out of 10 for the appeal. The technology, I actually gave it an 8 out of 10 too, mainly because of these cams. I love that they have one bolt. It just kind of pivots on that axle. You can get so many different draw lengths and draw weights, all from one module. But with that being said, it kind of hurt the performance for me. So we gave it a 6 out of 10 for the performance, which is the lowest performance grade we've given yet. But I think, you know, these cams and mod, that combo, you know, again, being such a versatile platform, you got to give and take a little bit, and I think it really, really affected the draw cycle and mostly the hold for me. 37, you add the 3 extra points for the price tag of $420, which anything under $1,000, we give you 3 extra bonus points. Anything between $1,000 and $1,500, we give you 2 extra bonus points, and anything over $1,500, we only give you 1 to make up for anywhere else that you kind of got deductions. So an even score of 40, which gives it that nice 80 out of 100, that solid B grade, which is perfect. for these budget bows. And again, they will all vary with their grades a little bit, but they all average to be about the same, right in that 80 out of 100, which is what we're looking for. Don't buy a bow off a single bow review. Hopefully these are just helpful and informational and may answer some questions that you might have, or be able to compare your feelings of when you go and shoot the bow to how I shoot the bow. But get the bow in your hand, get a lot of bows in your hand. As I mentioned earlier in this review, the more bows you get in your hand, the better off you're gonna be. Eventually one will stick out the most. So above all, make sure you get your reps in, and we'll see you next Saturday.